Hi, everybody. Charles here. Let me see if I can get my camera angle just a little bit better. Maybe that works. Okay. Just want to make a quick video to talk about the upcoming staking testnet. We've been working really hard at trying to get everything ready for you guys to start playing around and testing registration of a stake pool and the delegation mechanics. So the rollout of this is going to be basically we start with a command line client, and then we move from the command line client to eventually a full GUI. And then we take those innovations and we kind of roll them up into, let me just close Slack real quick so you don't keep hearing that. Or maybe Slack doesn't want to close. Okay. All right. So we'll just roll that out gradually. So we start with a command line client, we go to a GUI, and then eventually once it reaches a certain threshold of quality, it'll roll into mainnet. So the point of this video is to discuss the logistics behind actually explaining how delegation, staking, and these things work with Cardano. It's a totally new protocol. We don't have bonding, we don't have this craziness that Casper has, and we don't do things like NXT does. We do things differently. It's not to say their things are bad and ours are good. It's a different type of protocol. And what we've noticed is that the same types of questions tend to get asked over and over and over again, and the same types of concerns tend to be brought up. And it really makes no sense for us to try to answer them again and again. It makes a lot more sense for us to try to consolidate into a single location as much information as possible for people to self-explain and get an understanding of how these things are working. So anyway, how we're going to do that is we're going to create a task force of the community, and anybody can join that. And basically the first step will be just to give people an opportunity to list all the questions and comments and concerns, and then we hope that the task force can elect somebody or a group of people from within to act as a filter, unifier, and kind of an aggregator of all these questions. Then what I can do is instruct my people to go through and answer all those questions in a very systematic way, and then we can eventually create infographics and other materials so we can kind of create a handbook and say this is how staking works. We have a pretty in-depth description of it with the specifications. We had the workshop in Berlin, and the output of this workshop will be probably in the next week to 2 weeks, a completion of the ledger spec and the delegation spec, and at that point they'll be publicly released. So we have a very formal, rigorous mathematical description of how staking works, but this is not consumable by the general public. So our hope is to work with you guys to basically create some content that everyday people can understand about what is registration, what is the stake pool, how does staking work, and some of the dynamics behind Ouroboros. So in the description of this video, after I get done shooting the video, I'll post a registration form. If you guys are interested, fill out the form, and basically that allows us to aggregate everybody together, and then we'll try to decide what communication medium makes the most sense to put everybody into. One option would be Telegram, another option would be a Slack channel, but regardless of what format we choose, we'll try to get everybody into one place. And then the first step will be for that group to nominate some people who are responsible for aggregation. And then it's just a feedback loop of gathering as many questions as possible about the staking process. And then we can get to the business of answering those questions. Second, if you are interested in running a stake pool or playing around with the testnet when it becomes available very soon, then please do fill out this form as well, because what we're going to try to do is roll over that group, or at least some subset of that group, to the testnet and start getting some real data, the registration and the delegation mechanics and so forth. So anyway, that's where we're at there. In terms of how we will go from the testnet to a production system, there are two competing repos that are both working with independent teams, and it's sudden death criteria. So basically, the wallet backend for Cardano, what we released in 1.4, is being decoupled from Cardano, and it's in its own repo, the Cardano wallet repo. And once that decoupling is done, we'll be in a position where we can connect that to either the Rust code or to the new Haskell code that we've been writing. So throughout the next few weeks to months, we're going to be connecting the Rust code and connecting the new Haskell code to that wallet backend. And whichever one is done first will end up becoming the first release of Shelley. It looks like the Rust code is a little ahead of the Haskell code in terms of our ability to run a testnet, So that's probably going to be the repo and the code base that we use for the upcoming Shelley testnet to build up a population of stake pools. So there's a series of things that have to be done to get there. The OBFT update, which is Cardano 1.5, and then the Cardano decoupling, which is 1.6. And then post that, we can connect the Rust or the Haskell code. So whenever we're ready for, and it's either on the Haskell side or the Rust side, we can just simply wire the code together, flip a switch, and suddenly Shelley is turned on. Now, to mention the rollout, what's going to happen is that OBFT will run for all slots in the first epoch. Then the next epoch, some percentage of slots will be turned over to the stake pool. So this, and if they make all their slots, or if they make the majority of their slots, meaning that they're correctly operating the pool, then the next epoch, it'll double. And then the next epoch, more will come. And the next epoch, more will come. And over a period of epochs, it'll go from OBFT running all the slots to OBFT running none of the slots, and the whole network basically being decentralized. So this is kind of a gradual winnowing, a gradual decentralization that will occur to the system. So the prerequisite there, again, is the OBFT update, and the coupling, and then whichever code base is ready, the Rust base or the Haskell base, we'll wire it in. We decided to have two independent teams following different processes because I really wanted to de-risk delivery in the event that that one is just delayed for some bizarre reason. We have a different approach and a different team, and the hope is that that team may be able to overcome that challenge a little faster. About the specifications, so once the formal spec is done, so what happened with the summit was that we wrote a bunch of stuff, and we went and we all talked about it, and then we realized that there was a few things in the spec that needed to be updated or changed, and then there's some other things that needed to be drawn out a little bit more about how we handle a particular piece of math or a particular type. And that's always what happens when you bring engineers together with scientists and the formal methods people, is that they actually realize that there's a little bit of a delta between what they wrote and what we need. So Jared, the head of that effort, is right now cleaning up the specification, and he's also going to be merging the Byron ledger spec with the Shelley spec. So if you look at how our system works, we're changing the way that validation works on the ledger. So in many cases, we're simplifying things, and in many cases, we're making it a little easier to understand or implement. So Shelley is, in a way, a massive improvement over what we released with Sarah Kell's code and Byron. But in order to be able to validate older transactions and run the old chain, we still have to have the old legacy rules. So you have to combine both of these things together. So now that the delegation spec is in its final stages of refinement, the Shelley and the Byron spec will be put together. And then in short order, we'll add the extended UTXO model to it and the multi-asset model, the chimeric asset model that we have, that will allow us to basically have people issue their own assets in the system and smart contracts in the system, Plutus support, basically. So look for that in the next few weeks. Those specs will be finally publicly released, and will make a lot of fanfare. They technically are available, but not in a really consumable format. They're on the GitHub repo. So if you look at the Ledger spec repo and the other repos, if you compile the LaTeX, you can create a PDF, but it's not like you can click a button. It's easy to download the spec. So that's where we're at. So anyway, we'll have a link in the description shortly after this video ends, and that link will basically be a registration form. If you're interested in getting your questions answered, sign up, and then we'll roll everybody into some channel, either Telegram or a Slack channel, most likely Telegram. Step one will be for all the people in that Telegram channel to self-assemble and elect a collection of people to filter and aggregate the information, and then ask away all the questions you could ever want about staking. They'll put it all into a document to us. We will answer that document, and then we'll have our marketing people look at it and see if we can extract some infographics from it to make it easier to explain. We may also do some video content as well. Then based on that, the next step will be to roll that group of people over into the testnet and start running the testnet using stake pools, and we'll see how that goes. And based on the data we generate there, at some point that will mature enough so that we can connect that to the existing Cardano code. And then once we fork, Shelley's turned on. So thanks, guys, for all your support. Sorry it's taken a while. It's a lot of work. Specification-driven development is a bit of an effort, and we had to learn a lot along the way. But we're getting there, and it's nice to see how quickly things are coming together, and and how we're able to have great conversations around the work that's been done. And I'm really excited to see Shelley come out. And I'm also really excited to see Plutus and Marlowe come out. And there's a lot of cool things there. And I think you guys are going to be really happy with the product. So thank you so much for your time, and talk to everybody soon.